Nigeria is the number 6 most populated country in the world.
Right.
There's 230 million people there. Nigeria's population doubled in the last 20 years.
Wow.
You know what that means? That means the median age is 20 years old. So
Right.
you have an economy that, by the way, the infrastructure is set up currently to support Nigeria becoming like one of the main outsourcing hubs. Nigeria's government has this program called NITDA, NITDA. They have this program where they're focused on become the number 1 outsourcing hub in the world over the Philippines by 2027. So Nigeria's time zone is only 5 hours ahead of the US time zone. It's very close, and the Philippines are 12 hours ahead. So what happens, we've hired from the Philippines and we've noticed there's a ton of churn because people are like vampires working 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. That's my point here, right? It's like, then people ask about the quality of work.
Right.
Honestly, if I'm gonna be honest with you, I have offshore employees that are actually harder workers and better executors than some of my US employees.
Storm.
Guys, what's going on? We got another episode of the One Network here. I'm here with Raz. He's the founder and CEO of Talent Hackers. Has had a career as a serial entrepreneur in the e-commerce space. I know a lot of you guys are in that scenario as well. I'm curious to get into that as well as the outsourcing. I know outsourcing has been a big thing for all of my companies, just finding that right talent, getting them at the right rate, and then integrating them into your team. I've got a lot of questions for you on that, just for my own personal curiosity. But for everybody, just to give a little bit of background, how did you get into business in the first place and become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, bro.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Real quick though, you're hiring, from what countries are you hiring from?
I have done Philippines. I have done Nigeria. I've done India, obviously Pakistan. Never Brazil.
Brazil. And Egypt, right?
And Egypt. Egypt was the other big one.
Interesting. You've been all over the world. You have a ton of experience.
But mostly Philippines has been typical.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Philippines is the number 1 outsourcing hub in the world right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like I've also heard, and we had a couple other guys on the podcast, a guy named Cigar Passport or something. He's John Metzner.
Oh yeah, I heard about that guy.
So we had him on. He was talking about Irish sales guys, and I've heard a lot of people who've done that. One of our members has that, and then of course your good friend Omer. With the Colombians.
That's right. Yeah. Omer, Remote Latinos. Shout out Remote Latinos. Good guys.
Remote Latinas.
Very good guys.
So I guess so that's kind of, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
That's great that you've been able to test from all over the world though. But to answer your first question, how I got into business, I guess, right? Okay. Well, I mean, I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs. I'm kind of lucky. I got 3 brothers, 2 older ones, 1 younger. Nice. And my father's also an entrepreneur. Okay. So there's a lot of pressure there.
What line of business were they in, or what type of business?
Yeah, my father is he's a real estate developer, and so is one of my brothers.
Okay,
and
got it.
The other one started off his career in working at Fidelity on the equity research side, and then pivoted to entrepreneurship. I think he had a lot of FOMO seeing his father and his other brother in entrepreneurship.
So he was kind of, he got into the peer pressure there, and that's kind of how he started.
Yeah, I think it's in our DNA. I think that's what it is. But yeah, that's how I got started. I mean, I never really aspired to really be an employee for a long period of time. However, I was an employee at one point. Right out of college, I got a job at a company that was selling on Amazon on a big scale. And I had sold previously on Amazon myself in college.
Was that organized as a business, or is this kind of just more so side hustle? Like how
when I was in college?
Yeah.
In college, in college I launched my first private label product / brand. I sold scratch off maps. So it's literally like imagine a map, and if you've ever visited a particular country or a city, you can scratch off that place you've been.
Oh, nice.
And we launched. There was a Q4 product. Okay. So after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, I launched it in time.
Given we're shooting this on Black Friday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It is Black Friday today. We sold out in like 3 weeks on my first turn of inventory for that product that I launched in college. So we did $30,000 in sales. Wow. I was a junior in college, I think. So that was my first taste of selling on Amazon.
How long did it, just quickly, because I know I have a lot of people who are like, they're sort of on the Discord. They're like, what business do they get involved in? And
Hmm.
e-commerce, like drop shipping, those are like the common business models that are pushed.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that like how much learning did it take for you to get to like that 30K sales scenario?
Well, actually, well, in that scenario in particular, I really wanted to get into
Right.
business, but I didn't have the expertise.
Right.
But I had money, and when I mean money, I had my father who loaned me like a few $1,000s to buy that first batch
To
of
get the
inventory.
inventory.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I
Pretty cool.
partnered up with a guy in Vietnam, believe it or not,
Yeah.
who had Amazon experience. And I made it. I went to a Facebook page, a Facebook group of Amazon sellers,
Right.
and I was like, hey, I have money. I'm looking for someone
Right.
who knows how to sell on Amazon and who has a few ideas for products,
Yeah.
and I'll finance the whole thing. The only caveat is I want to learn from you. So you do everything, but I want to
Okay.
learn from you. And that's how I learned
Right.
how to sell on Amazon, through that guy. I had
And he was
dabbled in whole.
already in it. He was already kind of
He was
successful
he
with
was
it.
an employee for other sellers because
Got
he
it.
was an offshore employee, right? In
Yeah.
Vietnam, didn't have much money, but knew had experience.
Interesting.
And I did a profit share model with him.
Okay.
And then that fizzled out. After I graduated college, like I
Sure.
said, I went to that other company and I became an employee at this big company. They were a unicorn, Amazon sellers.
So you were curious to kind of see like how they do it just internally, and
I wanted experience, right? And what better experience than to work for a unicorn company that's selling on Amazon? There's not many of those companies. I mean,
Right.
and this
It's
company had
pretty
an
rare.
office in Manhattan too.
Nice.
It was very organized. So I got a lot of exposure very quickly in that role.
Cool. So
Yeah.
what I mean, walk me through what happened. We talked to a lot of people who have careers. They get like inspired by either seeing their boss who's an entrepreneur, or you know what I'm saying. They like to go into the same industry that they worked in. Like, what was your sort of thought process, or when were you like, hey, I'm going to take a stab at this again?
Yeah, I mean, that experience was very short lived, actually.
Okay.
Again, like I said, I didn't want to be an employee for too long.
Right.
So from there, I just kind of left and started doing it on my own. Doing it on my own, meaning selling on Amazon on my own, right?
Got it.
So yeah, and then we formed D1 Brands,
Okay.
and now it's called the Amber Group. We've
Okay.
been through a merger. We had a rebranding.
Yep.
Yeah, and we.
And you had co-founders in this, right? Or
Yeah, that's why I'm saying we. So my brother
your brother. Okay.
was one of the co-founders,
Interesting.
and
How have you found that relationship just working with your brother?
it's a good
I have a
question.
brother. I always try to get him involved in my businesses, but it's like
Yeah.
butt heads.
Well, first of all, my brother is an extremely intelligent person and has a ton of experience, but super humble and has a lot of humility.
Nice.
So I learned a lot from him. We didn't really butt heads, honestly.
Okay.
He's a very reasonable person. I'm lucky to have a brother like him, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew I was inexperienced and was okay to
Yeah.
watch me, grow and go through that learning curve. But yeah, it was okay. It was good. It was a very good experience.
Nice.
Yeah. So we had about 4 co-founders at the time, and
Okay.
we raised money from friends and family, and
Okay.
we acquired a few Amazon and private label businesses.
Okay.
Okay, and we rolled them up, and we resourced. And the idea was to scale these businesses, right? You acquire a business, you want to scale it.
Right.
But we acquired 20 businesses in 1 year.
What kind of size?
First year.
Do you have like a?
I think in the beginning, like our threshold was like our minimum was $250,000 of EBITDA,
Okay.
so profit. So those businesses typically do around $1 million revenue per year. That was the base size, and then we increased that to like 3 million as we grew,
Okay.
because we found out that to resource one business with a team,
Saves a lot.
it's the same amount of resource to resource $1 million brand than it is to resource a $20 million brand.
It doesn't scale up.
It doesn't. No,
expenses.
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Because some SKUs can do $10 million on revenue on Amazon. Some SKUs can do $250,000. So, but it doesn't take any more additional work just because it's a bigger. You're just dealing with bigger numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we started, and then we ended up raising a few more rounds of financing after that.
And that was just all to finance like the acquisitions.
Acquisitions.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
What this kind of ties into your current business, but
Yeah.
I'm curious, in this industry or with this type of business, like what what are some of the factors that played into your success? Like, what are some of the most important things? Is the team important? Is the marketing strategy important? Like, what are the most important things in scaling that business up?
In that business, in that particular model, it was very M&A driven. Like,
Okay.
That was
So it's
really the
like your
backbone.
selection of the businesses is
Yeah,
what it's called.
selection, of course,
Okay.
and what you pay for it. We
Right.
were buying businesses prior to and during COVID.
Right.
So a lot of things were inflated, and it was very hard to underwrite deals because forecasting was very, very difficult.
Huh.
Like no one really knew what was going to happen. We saw a 10x in demand in the
Wow.
e-commerce industry entirely, right? And
During everybody
during
ordering from
yeah, and
home. Yeah.
it was hard. It was very tough to forecast
Yeah.
sales. And why is that important? Because you're placing purchase orders
Yeah.
uh, to bring in more inventory, and you think your demand's at a new level, but it's not. And we were stuck with a ton of overstock at a certain point. Every business
Sure.
on Amazon was pretty much.
So what does the day to day look like for you then as like a founder? Is it mostly
Yeah,
research and like looking at
yeah.
numbers?
I mean, look, we did. I mean, um, yeah, I was a director of brand management, so I mean, we were wearing a lot of hats in the early days, but as we kind of grew, I was director of brand management, and so I had a bunch of brands I managed under me, and the employees that were managing those brands.
So you sort of took a liking, I imagine, to working with people and like managing human resources.
Yeah, so I hired a ton of brand managers,
Okay.
like a
Who are those?
ton.
What's the typical profile of that of a brand manager?
Well, a brand manager is someone who manages the day to day, like pricing, who works cross functionally
Yeah.
across teams within the organization, like the creative team, also the marketing team.
Right.
But they are essentially the owners of the brand,
Right.
and they manage the P&L.
Okay.
So they manage pricing. They work with the PPC team. They work with the creative department. They also drive new product development. They are constantly monitoring competitors in the space and getting a pulse check of what's happening, and reacting to certain things in the market.
Yeah.
They're bringing new ideas, new variations, new color, and product improvement solutions. So they have a pulse on everything, making sure that the business is functioning as it should be,
Got it.
and are trying to grow revenue and profit.
How do you select for that in like your recruiting? Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's just that they've had a similar role in the past, or like what are you looking at to determine if they're, a good hire for that
Yeah,
role?
that's a very good question. I mean, you can kind of tell. There are a lot of like when you're in the space,
Right.
what companies are good and bad, and you can see that on
You
their
just have a sense
resumes.
for it.
Yeah, but also they have a lot of, if they're familiar with particular tools, there's only
Sure.
a handful of them in the space, and there is a certain lingo and a language in
They have to
the
speak.
Amazon that they have to
Yeah.
speak, right? And so we asked them like, what KPIs are you tracking on a daily basis,
Right.
monthly basis, weekly basis, right?
Right.
What's a healthy, talk about these and talk about the KPIs, right?
Right.
Like, well, what's a healthy tacos, right? Which is total advertising cost of sale.
Okay.
What's questions along those lines,
Where they would know the numbers just from their own
right?
experience.
You can't really BS it too,
Yeah.
but a lot of these people we hired from Pakistan.
Okay.
Pretty much
Interesting.
all of our brand managers were out of Pakistan, and Karachi, and Islamabad, and Lahore.
And at that point, how are you getting them? Like, what does the actual recruitment process look like? Like, where are you looking for them on, or are they on a platform?
These are really good questions because this is the segue into the business I'm building now, right?
Right.
What we were looking for, well, basically, come again with the question.
So where are you hiring them? Is it like on a job board? Are you reaching out to them?
Right.
Are you using a staffing agency? Like where are you actually
Yeah.
getting the talent in
Right.
Pakistan?
All right. So we had boots on the ground recruiting team in Pakistan,
Okay.
but
Interesting.
there were local job boards
Okay.
in Pakistan. But also LinkedIn works just
Yeah.
fine. Indeed as well. We also had an applicant tracking system that
Okay.
when we post a job, it goes to like a dozen different job boards, and then it centralizes all the applicants.
Do you just want a bigger top of the funnel? Is that the reason for having the boots on the ground, or is there some other sort of
So
business
there's a lot of
context?
referral opportunities that come along with that,
Got it.
like relation, right? So we
Relationship
definitely
building.
100% like
Yeah.
from our employees within. There's also a lot of incubators in Pakistan for Amazon talent specifically,
Yeah.
which is why part of the reason why we also entered Pakistan, because a lot of the labor there is already trained up
Yeah.
from incubation
Yeah.
opportunities, other sellers,
Yeah.
and so that market for Amazon particularly is very, very strong. So
Got
it
it.
wasn't really that difficult
Okay.
to find good talent, and we would, regardless, we would bring on junior guys and train
Train them.
them because I also led the learning and development department.
Okay.
So I created a course internally, like a
Okay.
classroom internally. Also, like live training sessions and that were pre-recorded.
How critical is that?
Very, very critical,
Yeah.
which I'll get into a little bit more because it's part of how you scale the team.
Yeah.
It's very important that you give these people the resources
Yeah.
early on because that's when they have the most confidence,
Yeah.
and are kind of like ready to hit the ground running. And you don't want them to they kind of have like a honeymoon period when they first join. Like
Yeah.
if you don't give the baby, the food it needs early on, it's not going to grow.
Right.
And so it's very important early on. You're feeding your new hire with information, and they're getting over
Yeah.
that learning curve as soon as possible so they can actually hit the ground running and,
Yeah.
and provide value to your
Yeah.
organization.
Well, this is an interesting question. It's just like the training materials. Like I've always built out these sort of esoteric onboarding manuals for new employees, where it's more like a database of knowledge for me. But it's like, do you feel like you have to really go one-on-one with these hires to get them trained, or can they do it self-service from the materials or the courses? Like, are they just self-motivated? Like the best people are self-motivated and they just read through it and learn it.
No, I mean everyone's different, honestly. Some people come with a ton of experience, and we're
But
hiring them for L3 and L4 positions. But the
they already know.
L1s and L2s, the more junior guys, like definitely you want to hold their hand a bit more early on because you're not only investing in them with money, right?
It's your time and
It's
the
also
position.
the
Yeah.
time to get the most value out of someone. You want to get 100%. You want to get the most value out of someone, right? You want to get
Right.
100% of them.
Right.
You if you don't put in that time and hold their hand just a little bit
Yeah.
early on, you're probably not going to get their full potential, and that would be a shame. And
Yeah.
so,
Are those first few weeks critical, like as far as the first impression and like showing them that you're paying, you're monitoring their performance and sort of providing resources? Like, have you found that those first few weeks after the hire are key?
yeah, very, very important. I
Yeah.
mean, the way that I have it set up,
Right.
I had it set up for D1 Brands, Amber Group,
Okay.
and my current business,
Yeah.
is we basically, over 2 weeks, we want to get through all of the training material. Okay. So
Okay.
you also don't want to bombard them too much for too long, right? That can
Yeah.
also get dicey. So you want to give them just the right enough context,
Yeah.
and then on their own, and then they become a little bit more proactive and figure it out on their own.
Now, with D1 Amber, did you have middle management in there doing the training?
Yeah, as you scale up, because we hired 150 people,
Oh, wow.
right?
Okay.
We had a lot of
Pretty
people
big.
offshore.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you can't,
Do
I
it
can't
yourself.
personally do it.
Yeah.
We had a really large team, but again, like I personally, along with my partner, we had a library of 400 SOPs.
Yeah.
So like whenever someone had a question,
Yeah.
this was our goal. Someone asks us a question, if we have to type out the answer,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, if we had to type out a long answer, we would be like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just have an SOP for that. And then we would have a link to the SOP
Okay.
and just answer the question with the link.
Okay.
How do I list a product on Amazon?
Right.
Instead of being like step 1, step 2, step 3,
Right.
every time we get that question, we have an SOP for that question. We have the answer for that question.
Yeah.
So we had 400 answers to 400 frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
You can think of it like that.
Right.
And so that, I created that like really early on. 3 years later, employees I never even met would like, a lot
They'd
of
recite it back to you or be
a
like,
lot of new employees,
Yeah.
I didn't really get FaceTime with because there's so many.
right.
And when I would finally get on a call with them, they'd be like, "Hey, man, like, just want to say thank you. Like, I've seen your face all over Guru. It's this software we used where
It's the management software.
where we house all the SOPs,
Okay.
and they recognized me because I have all these videos,
You're doing little
training them.
walkthroughs. Yeah.
So essentially, I indirectly trained all these people,
right. Through
and
the videos.
yeah, through
Yeah.
videos. So it's been great.
Cool.
It's worked a lot. We do a lot. We invest a lot of time in training. A lot.
Cool. So yeah, I guess before we get into TH, the new company, with D1 Amber, you were talking about. So you're still involved in the company, or what's just like?
No.
How's that kind of work, or what ended up happening there?
Yeah. So basically, we did a merger, and that came with a very talented executive team as well.
Okay.
And so we have, the entire C-suite and executives and middlemen. The whole organization's built out. I'm
Right.
essentially not needed there for the day to day anymore.
Right.
And so I stepped down from my day to day to build this new business, which is the offshore staffing agency.
Right.
Right. So I mentioned I hired and trained over 150 people offshore, hiring from Pakistan and the Philippines. Now with Talent Hackers, we found a new incredible talent pool out in Nigeria, and I figured, we built this entire recruiting like internally at Talent
Okay.
Hackers, excuse me,
Yeah.
at D1.
Yeah.
I need help. I think, it makes sense for in this new age of business for all businesses to leverage offshore talent, and so I want to help U.S. employers hire offshore talent and introduce them to this world
Right.
because you can hire 4 or 5 guys for the price of one U.S. person. So to me, it's a no-brainer to have a cohort of an offshore team. Excuse me.
Big question on the offshore team, and I do want to get into just like building the company and like the different personas that you go after, and just like scaling this company versus D1. But so one thing I always feel like how important with an offshore team is like the culture or the environment. So I've had big offshore teams. I always feel weird doing like those kind of like team building calls because like, dude, they really give like a shit about me like building the team. They're like a million miles away. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But so
Yeah.
it seems to me more about like, hey, that the work is reliable for them. They're getting paid every week. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you find? Like, I mean, you can even go into the Nigerians in particular, but like, what type of management is needed comparative to in person US based team
So I just had a happy hour with my Nigerian team today,
over
um,
Zoom?
over Zoom.
Okay,
Um, when I got into business and I graduated, COVID was, just started a year or two after I graduated, and
right,
so like I've always built. I mean, really, all my work has been online,
right,
and
remote,
so like it's been remote. So when I was working at that company based in the U.S.,
right.
we were remote.
The whole team was remote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was 100 U.S. employees at the time.
right,
I
right.
mean, business. It's not uncommon to have employees remote or working hybrid,
No,
right? That's the new world we live in now.
yeah,
Why would you treat someone over Zoom who's born in the U.S. differently than anyone born elsewhere?
right,
We're all remote. This is a global economy now.
right,
So treat humans with decency as you would anyone. Doesn't matter if you're from the U.S., if you're from Canada,
right,
if you're from China, if you're from, Africa. Why does that matter?
right,
Right? Humans are humans all over the world. We're all the same,
right.
right? So think about it. If you're an employee, do you want to be treated as a freelancer where kind of like there's no attention and love and support?
Yeah,
You know, no, you're going to, I'm talking about extracting 100% of someone's full potential.
sure.
How are you going to do that if you treat them like another,
Rando.
rando, right?
Yeah,
No, we treat all of our employees the same as if they're in the U.S.
yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why we need to be treating anyone any differently. Doesn't matter if you're a freelancer or
Whatever it
not.
is.
I had an employee, he got sick this week,
Okay.
and my HR lead
Right.
internally, she sent that employee a card
Okay.
saying get better because he was hospitalized. He's better now.
Oh wow. Okay.
And another treat, and he was over the top, super excited, super happy, super thankful. I mean, think about it.
Good.
You're sick and your company takes care of you.
That's
They're going to
big.
feel that.
No.
They're going to feel like they're a part of something. And
Yeah.
guess what? Your retention is going to stay high.
Right.
You're going to get 100% out of people
Right.
more likely than not if you weren't giving them any attention. And you got to show people appreciation.
Sure.
I think that drives that drives
Drives
ambition.
basic human. It's
Yeah.
human nature.
100%.
Cool.
So yeah, that's culture is important. Just like you would handle it in your company with your U.S. employees, you do the same with the employees anywhere else in the world. Doesn't matter. Why is it different? So that's my point here, right? It's like then people ask about the quality of work.
Right.
Honestly, if I'm gonna be honest with you, I have offshore employees that are actually harder workers
Right.
and better executors than some of my U.S. employees.
Right.
A lot of U.S. employees. I mean, look, we're
Yeah.
not the smartest people in the world. We're 5% of the world population. Right?
We're the laziest.
We're talking about We're talking about access to global talent.
Yeah.
And it's funny you just said we're the laziest because a lot of people are a bit entitled, especially these new kids out of college. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but look, like, don't get me wrong, we have a great educational system here in the U.S.
Right.
and there is incredible talent here as well, of
Right.
course. And I'm not talking about replacing these jobs with offshore talent. I'm talking about
Right.
getting the additional support you need as a business owner in the U.S. Right? But
Right.
just offshore, like, there's a lot of mundane tasks you don't need a resource, a U.S. employee for.
Right.
Understand? So, so yeah, I mean, the
Right.
quality of talent, honestly, from what I've seen, has been incredible. Like, honestly, like, because if you think about it, these people over offshore are
Right.
getting an opportunity to work for a U.S. employer. That's
Right.
fantastic for their resume.
Right.
They're getting paid 3, 4, 5, 6 times above market,
Right. It's just
right,
natural.
compared to their locale.
Yeah.
I mean, these people go above and beyond just because of just that.
Yeah.
And so you're really unlocking, you know, 80, 90, 100% of that person's potential compared to sometimes less drive here in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Do you find certain positions are better suited? Like the biggest question I have, and then it's immediately debunked by like, certain countries that you hire from, but it seems like the sort of, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The work quality is honestly better. It makes sense, right? Because the motivations are different. But then you have certain positions that are like require you to, whether it's sales or account management.
Yep.
So I think I told you, like, last business was marketing agency, had a team in person, obviously way overpriced on the team in person. Yeah, I probably would have had much better margins or overall, but I don't know. I had people in Brazil, Philippines, whatever, but I just couldn't put them on what I'm saying, on that client call or on that sales sort of onboarding call, even if they had like great English. But I don't know if it was because of skill. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they could probably do the skill based parts of it the same or better.
You're
But
talking about like the accents, maybe,
I don't know. Yeah, maybe
like the
it's the accent, maybe
culture,
it's the
like, yeah,
culture, just like
the
the
lingo,
jargon.
the
And
jargon. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
100%. Look, I mean, that's one particular niche,
domain.
right?
Yeah,
One domain, right? You're talking about, like, there's thousands and tens of thousands of different positions
sure,
out there for any different company.
sure.
So, like, yeah, closers, sure, you may want to, do it in the US just
Yeah,
because the numbers could be better for various reasons. And,
right.
if you're paying commission only, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah,
But, like, I hire a ton of appointment setters offshore,
right,
um, graphic designers,
right,
brand managers, PPC managers, digital
right.
marketers, influencer marketing assistants. We hire a lot of full stack developers as well,
Definitely.
front end web
Yeah,
web dev, back end as well. I mean, we're hiring positions across so many different verticals. A lot of e-commerce roles, pretty much anything e-commerce related. You can hire offshore for,
right.
because you're not, you're talking about closers. Not a lot of client facing roles when you're in
It's
e-commerce. It's
B2C.
like it's
Yeah,
B2C. Yeah. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
cool. I guess shifting gears a little bit. So, talk a little bit about the company. What are your goals? For talent hackers, obviously this is like a booming sort of niche for obvious reasons. Companies want to hire abroad. That market conditions are more favorable. It just makes more sense. But what are
Mm.
your objectives for the company? Like, what are you trying to do with this company? And overall, like, why switch from ecom to doing a staffing company?
Yeah. I mean, look, Nigeria is the number 6 most populated country in the world.
Right.
There's 230 million people there. Nigeria's population doubled in the last 20 years.
Wow.
You know what that means? That means the median age is 20 years old. So
Right.
you have an economy that, by the way, is the infrastructure is set up currently to support Nigeria becoming like one of the main outsourcing hubs.
Right.
Nigeria's government has this program called NITDA, NITDA. They have this program where they're focused on their goal is to become the number 1 outsourcing hub in the world over the Philippines by 2027. So they're
Wow.
investing billions of dollars in infrastructure
Yeah.
in order to achieve that.
That's definitely a new thing too.
Yeah, it's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna promote the economy tremendously in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I mean, economy is a growing economy.
Right.
They're population is growing. One of the few countries where the population is actually increasing.
Right.
And there's a lot of like forecasts where Nigeria's economy compared to other economies by 2050 and what that's going to look like.
Oh wow. Okay.
So look, we're focused on connecting U.S. clients to the best talent globally. We don't only hire from Nigeria, but I have hired 150 people in my short career.
Okay.
My partner has hired 1,000.
Okay.
And we both have exposure to the Philippines, to Pakistan, Nigeria, Latin America, and a few other countries as well. India. I'm blown away by the talent in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I truly am. It's incredible, and we want to expose people to this. I mean, Nigeria's time zone is only 5 hours ahead of the U.S. time zone,
Right.
the Eastern time zone. Excuse me. It's very close, and the Philippines are 12 hours ahead.
Yeah.
So what happens? We've hired from the Philippines, and we've noticed there's a ton of churn because people are like vampires working 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.
That's deadlines of my experience entirely.
Yeah. They burn out.
Sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And in Pakistan, with my team over there, in the beginning, it's not as they're I think 9 hours ahead. We had to change the hours, so there was only 4 hours of overlap with the U.S. employees, which is an issue because our managers were in the U.S. and they had to like squeeze their meetings in from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. only.
There's going to be
things fall through the cracks. Things take longer than normal.
Yeah.
So Nigeria, you don't have that issue because 9 a.m. Eastern is 2 p.m. their time, and they end work at like 11 or 10 p.m. and they have dinner and go to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's very normal. And so anyway, talent there is fantastic. Yeah, and honestly, our goal truly is to help as many U.S. businesses find resources early on for startups. Okay, that's one of our goals.
Yeah.
We want businesses who think they can't afford to hire to be able to hire,
right, because
it's so affordable, right, offshore. And we want our goal is to have larger companies
do it too.
Stop the bloating. Why do we have, a lot of these companies in the US, and we've seen it throughout COVID, had extremely bloated, payroll costs. There's no reason for that. Yeah, there really is no reason for that. So we want to help the economy become more efficient with their businesses. And guess what? That's going to increase. That's going to, first of all, 95% of businesses fail, right?
Right.
We can bring that number down if people can resource early on. You understand? And these businesses can survive for longer because they had resources early on. And so that's the goal, man. It's to shed the light on this gold rush because, offshore talent is becoming more and more expensive. We're seeing it in the Philippines right now. 5 years ago, the Philippines was, on average, these guys were making, $3-4 an hour. Now it's up to like $6-7 an hour. And that's going to continue to increase. Same thing in Pakistan.
Same thing, yeah.
So, these countries are actually the cost of labor is increasing for this remote talent.
So what is it in Nigeria?
In Nigeria, it's like what the Philippines was 5 years ago.
It's like $5.
Yeah, I mean, look, it varies by position, by role, by experience levels. Whether you're junior or not. So it varies, but on average, it's like what Philippines was 5 years ago.
Interesting. Cool. How do you recommend, like, is the best way to take advantage? Like, should you go through a staffing company like Talent Hackers to get this talent? Like, can you do Upwork or one of the job boards or something? Like, what are some of the benefits from working with a staffing agency as opposed to trying to find it on your own?
That's a very good question. When you find someone on Upwork or Fiverr,
right,
those are freelancers. So they do project-based work. So
they're juggling different things.
They have 5 different clients, and you don't get their full attention. Right. We only focus on hiring full-time agents offshore. So these are people that are going to be embedded in your organization, be a part of your team, a part of your culture, as we talked about. Full-time, and the benefit of working with a staffing agency is, number one, the major reason is we act as the employer of record. So we handle the payroll. So you don't have to worry about payroll, benefits, HR stuff, and compliance overseas. Every country has their own local labor laws you have to adhere to. So we have to adhere to the Nigerian Labor Act, for example. Okay. They got to have certain policies in place that and PTO, sick leave policies. There's a annual holiday calendar that they have to observe. They got to get paid in a certain cadence. There's tax implications and things like that. We offer benefits as well. So you don't have to worry about all that administrative stuff. We handle it for you as a staffing agency. Also, when you work with us and you hire someone through us, let's say like a year from now, that person leaves for whatever reason, these things happen, or let's say it didn't work out, or you wanted to do a switch, you can scale up and down with us very, very seamlessly with no additional cost. So if someone leaves, we'll replace them for you at no additional cost, right? So we're kind of like your forever recruiting team once you engage with us. And that's the benefit of working with talent hackers.
Cool. How quickly do people scale up? Like, is it something where you could like theoretically like staff an entire company
Absolutely.
in weeks? Like, can you put a team together?
Yeah, we put a team together recently, a sales team for a client. We got 8 placements. They built a sales team, and we resourced that in less than a month for 8 new hires.
What goes into resourcing it?
Well, we launched a search. So we have to, first of all, align on the job description, the roles and responsibilities of the person we're looking for. That's very important because we want to attract the best people for you. And then we launch a search. We put it on all our job boards, and also we have a lot of referrals that go out.
Okay.
And also we have a repository of about 5,000 applicants already, just from like previous roles. So like there's a lot of roles that are that overlap with clients, and so like we would have interviewed someone in the past that we can bring in for a new client. We have a lot of exposure to talent just because of our experience in the space. Just going out there and looking for jobs. So anyway, that's how there's various ways of bringing in exceptional talent, and also the labor market knows about us. So we have 15,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Oh.
That's growing every day. Most of those are people in Nigeria, and everyone,
the talent,
word of mouth gets out too. So yeah, we have all this exposure, big network for it.
Yeah. How deeply do you vet the talent?
Very deeply. We have we ask all of our applicants to submit an intro video, a 60-second video answering 5 questions. That tells us a lot, because in 60 seconds we can see their accent.
Okay.
How right? Yeah. I'll get back to that thing I have in my head. But the accent. We see kind of like we get a sense for their personality.
Okay.
And if they're a culture fit or not. We also can see their video quality, and their audio quality, and their internet connection, right? We get all that in 60 seconds. And then also not everyone does that. So we can get 1,000 applicants and maybe 500 submit a video. That gets rid of 500 that were too lazy to submit a 60-second video, right? Then we do a first round interview, and we have more screening questions. And then we have a second round interview, which is a technical interview.
Okay.
And then we have them do a skills assessment depending on their role. So there's a lot of vetting that goes through, and we can do all of that in 2 to 4 weeks.
Nice.
2 to 4 weeks to do all of that. Yeah. And if you think about it, we're getting a lot of applicants for these roles, so we're saving our clients a ton of time. Who wants to go through all of that when they really need to be focused on scaling their business, right? Yeah. So we buy back time for you, right? So by working with us, you don't have to worry about all that. Trust our team to select the right candidate for you, because we've done it several times before.
You're not going to be able to do it on your own, really, to the same degree.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What are your objectives? Like, where are you trying to get the company in the next couple of years? Are you trying to exit on this? What's the play?
I think it's too early to tell. Okay. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the market.
Nice.
I won't talk numbers, but I do think there's so much opportunity here. But what's more important is how many people can we get a job? Right? How many clients can we help to scale their business affordably, right? So really the goal is we want to be able to help more people, because really it's a win-win-win situation. We're helping people find jobs, right. We're helping clients find exceptional talent, right. And we're making money by doing that, by putting that together. So I mean, we are on a mission. We've had a few dozen placements already.
Nice.
I don't really want to talk numbers, but we've had a lot of placements this year.
Sure.
We're almost a year old. but we've been doing this for 5-6 years.
Already.
We
Yeah,
already, we as in my partner and I had already essentially built.
Build out the system for it. Yeah.
We built out an entire internal recruitment function at our previous jobs or ventures, and so we're just doing it again, but helping clients this time.
What would have been some of the challenges or the biggest issues that you've had to face?
There hasn't been anything crazy, honestly.
No.
No, not yet.
Fair enough.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah. What either from the previous company or Talent Hackers, any sort of lessons that you've learned, tough lessons or wisdom to impart on earlier stage business owner?
Yeah, yeah. I got asked this question by someone else recently, and
Okay.
so I have this fresh in my head. But honestly, like the best thing you can do when you're an entrepreneur, when you're trying to build something,
Right.
is talk to someone. I like to
About
have a partner, at least one partner. I can
Yeah.
talk to my partner all. He's like my therapist. I also have my brother I can talk to. He's my other therapist.
Yeah.
I have some friends.
Team of therapists.
You have a lot of information in thoughts you're going through every single day. It helps to talk.
You got to
right?
process it somehow.
You got to process that information in your head because it's not fully fledged out. Talk. I believe in like the law of attraction. I believe in manifestation, and so and when you speak something,
You're putting it out in
the
the world.
universe will respond to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just talk about your ideas, talk about your plans. I know I haven't shared numbers with you on this call, on this podcast, but I do share numbers. I don't withhold information. I think not sharing numbers is great. Sharing goals is great because I like to try to speak it into existence, and it really works for me. It keeps me sane too, and it keeps me on track. So it's kind of a way to hold myself accountable too, because if I say something, I better do it.
They're expecting you to do it.
Yeah.
So. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a really good point because it's like, you can't just put the pen to the paper. Like, you know what I'm saying? None of these intuitions are like fledged out. You really got to talk. And it's easy to get kind of isolated and not talk to people. That's 100%. One of the benefits of having a partner.
Especially in a remote environment, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Raz, dude, how can people work with you? How can they, get involved with Talent Hackers if they have a position? Do they come to you? What's the process to get staffed up?
You can go to trytalenthackers.com, trytalenthackers.com. Trytalenthackers.com. You can just click and fill out a form. Click a button, fill out a quick form. You can also message me on LinkedIn at Raz Malas, RazMalas. Also on Instagram, it's the same handle at Raz Malas. And that's it. Very simple.
Yeah, I think a big point too for the early stage people is like, I feel like having employees, whether they're here or outsourced, it helps you develop your leadership skills. So I think for those early stage people, it's like very, they really should like start building out teams. Like it's just an essential part of kind of like your growth. And these Nigerians are heavy hitters, it's definitely not something. If Raz is saying that the rate right now is $5 an hour, like that's you gotta maximize that. You'd be stupid not to, really.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in one of these industries, e-com, marketing agency, whatever, SaaS even.
We also hire from Latin America, so if you're biased towards a particular region of the world, we are flexible in that sense. We have boots on the ground in like Colombia, for example.
And Raz, this is just a bonus question to chat. So if somebody's asking me, what are you a passport bro? What are some of the benefits of living in Colombia as a 20-something-year-old man?
Yeah, someone asked that in the chat right now.
Someone's asking that.
That's funny. I am a passport bro. So we're in Manhattan right now.
Right.
I spend my winters in Colombia.
You probably got $100 parking ticket waiting for you.
I do have probably. Yeah. I'm going to Colombia on Sunday, believe it or not. I like to look. I think personally, we live in a time as humans, where it's the only opportunity where you can actually enter the top 1% of income earners in the entire world, and work from anywhere in the world. So I'm gonna take advantage of that. I travel a ton. I think it's great. I like to immerse myself in new cultures, and I work from my computer, so I can do it from anywhere in the world.
In Colombia in particular.
Colombia I like just because there's a really great expat community down in Colombia.
Right. A lot of entrepreneurs.
A lot of entrepreneurs, and it's
Yeah.
funny, they're like all in their 20s too. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
And so when I went there for the first
It's like a
time 2 years ago,
migration, yeah.
I went there 2 years ago, and I was honestly, the networking opportunities there are even better than Manhattan. I shit you not.
Because it's probably more tight knit. You know, there's just like more
Yeah.
more is happening. You know
Well,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
absolutely. Plus the English speakers get together and then
Yeah.
they're, you know,
In terms of the ladies,
can't comment on that.
can't comment on that.
There's beautiful women all over the world though, for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. That's the next business.
Yes. What's next business?
Sourcing the other talent.
Right.
Yeah. From around the world.
Right.
But cool, Raz. Thanks for coming on. We'll drop all of Raz's links in the chat. If you're on the Slack or the Discord, you can message me or message Raz, and I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you and set you up.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Chris, for having me on, man. Appreciate
Great,
you.
man. This is the One Network.
Storm.